Can you see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So we will quickly, as we told, we will quickly go into the last derivation that we were doing with point-to-point networks, and then move on to time-sensitive networks as the last part in this course. So in with respect to point-to-point networks, we told that these are ad hoc networks. So where are the more structured networks used? When we are using the network in a closely coupled system, for example, within a die, within the board, in a multiprocessor system, things tend to be, when you are thinking of communication between processors and memories, between processors, we use such very structured communication networks, and it is used in practice. So the physical layout, as we discussed in these structures, they are important, and therefore they are important as communication networks for embedded systems, for embedded communication systems. Now, when we move to more distributed systems, more geographically distributed systems, we we do not typically go for very structured physical networks layouts. Things often become an ad hoc network, and we will see one example of such. We will deeply deal with one example. The time sensitive network that we will see is an ad hoc network of such point-to-point networks, and is used in distributed computing systems, in edge computing systems, in the LAN, everywhere. So typically in a point-to-point ad hoc network, you will consist of n systems, computers, etc., and there could be switches. For example, in this system here, n1 and n4 could be computers, while n2 and n3 could be switches or computers, right? But the moot point is that they do not follow any regular structure. And between two end systems, for example, N1 and N4 are two end systems here, uh, there could be multiple paths. And we told that we would like to determine, often like to determine terminal reliability, because overall finding the overall reliability is complex, and in many a times it is not required. So what we are more concerned about is if there are two high priority end systems that are connected to, how reliable is this connection if there are, when there are multiple paths from the source to destination. So that is determined by something called terminal reliability, and is defined as the probability that that there exists an operational path between two specific nodes given the probabilities of link failures. And also we told node failures, with link failures taking care of node failures as well in the manner that we discussed before. So as an example we did last day is how do we calculate the terminal reliability between the source sink pair N1 and N4, and we saw that N1 and N4 has three paths from N1 to N4. One is X1, X2, X2, X4. The other is X1, X3, X3, X4, and the third is X1, X2, X2, X3, and X34. Sorry, X12, X23, and X34. So these were the three paths, and and while calculating the reliability, we found one difficulty. The difficulty that these three operational paths are not disjoint. So when we are trying to find out, are there any of these paths are operational, means we want to find out the reliability when at least one of these paths are operational. Now, while doing that, our initial problem was that these paths are not disjoint. Some of the links are common. So so our calculation of reliability, we cannot just sum up the probabilities of these three paths because some of these links are common. So we found a way out of making things simpler. and making these three events that that path 1 is operational, path 2 is operational, path 3 is operational. These three events, how to make it disjoint. We said that we will consider these paths when actually the network will be in operation in a certain order, and that we will use P1 when P1 is available, and we will not look at P2 and P3 at all. We will use P2 only if P1 is not operational. We will not look at P3 at that time. And we will use P3 only when both P2 and P1 are not operational. And in that case, only P3 will be used. By this mechanism, we will make the events, we will make these events that the use of P1, the use of P2, and the use of P3 disjoint. Why? Because P1 is used independently. We are not looking at P2 and P3 at all when P1 is operational. P2 is used only in the event that P1 is not operational. And P3 is used only in the case when P1 and P2 are not operational. These are the three events. What are the mutually exclusive events? As jotted down here, the mutually exclusive events are P1 is up, P2 is up and P1 is down, and P3 is up when both P1 and P2 are down. And we said that the resultant reliability of this path, this terminal reliability from N1 to N4, therefore becomes the summation of three probabilities. One, P1 is up. The second probability, P1 is up while P2 is down. And the third one says that P1 is up while P2 and P3 are, P2 is up when P1 is down, and P2 is up when P1 is down, and P3 is up when both P1 and P2 are down. And we said that while doing this calculation, we had to go to individual links. Why? Because they are not. Why? Because they are not disjoint. So we said we went to that extent that when we calculated, for example, the third term, we went to the extent that see P3 means that P1 to P, if P3 is this path, then it means that X12, X23 and X34 must be up. And therefore, in that scenario, if P1 has to be down, then the only case could be that X24 should not be working at that time. So the probability for the event P3 and obviously P2 will be down only if X13 is not working. So the probability for this third event that P3 is up and P1 and P2 are down is the multiplication of all these individual terms. What? P12, P23, P34 into Q13 into Q24. So the multiplication of all these together gives me the probability of the third event, that P3 should be up when P1 and P2 are both down. Any questions up to this? Then we move to the generalization. Just okay, yes, no, once I get, and I'll move. Are you there with me?
Sir, it's clear.
Yes. So then we move to the generalization, and we said that in general, we will consider NS to be the source node, ND to be the destination node, and we will see, we will assume that there exist M paths, M distinct paths, not M paths between M distinct paths, obviously, and M distinct paths where some links may be common between NS and ND. And these paths will be named P1, P2 dot dot up to PM. And EI and EI bar denotes the events that that path PI is operational and path PI is faulty. Again, we said that the reliability, the terminal reliability between the source and destination becomes what? The probability that event 1 union event 2 union event M, the probability that any one, at least one of this, that either of these, any one of these paths should be operational. Now again, these are not disjoint. So we again follow the same rule as to how to make them disjoint. We impose restrictions on the usage of these paths. We will use, if path 1 is working, we will use path 1, not looking at anything else. We will use path 2, not looking at anything else. If path 2 is operational and path 1 is not working, likewise we move on similar to the previous. So therefore this reliability can be converted in this form. So E1 union E2 union ... em can be written as E1 union E2 intersection E1 bar, E3 intersection E1 bar intersection E2 bar, likewise. Now, because these events are disjoint, we can write them as summation over probabilities of individual events. So the terminal reliability can therefore be written as probability that path 1 is working plus the probability that path 2 is working while path 1 is faulty. Summation, likewise, we go on like this. The probability that EM is working, the last path PM is working, and all other paths are not working simultaneously or happening, this probability. So the summation of these probabilities give me the path reliability. Now we can write this summation of probabilities as conditional probability, and we can write it as probability E1, and then probability E2 intersection E1 bar can be written as probability of E1 bar given E2 is working. If given E2, that means probability that path 1 is faulty given path 2 is not working. This can be written as, so this probability of E2 intersection E1 bar can be written as probability of E2 multiplied by probability of E1 bar given E2. Okay. Likewise, we go on up to the last term where we say the last term, the last event is the probability that of EM happening, probability of event M, that means path M is working, while at the same time all other paths are not working. That means the probability that E1 bar intersection E2 bar dot 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 up to EM minus 1 bar given EM. Right. So we move to next slide, slide number 5. Okay. Now this probability at any of these terms in the last equation, we saw a term of the form E1 bar intersection E2 bar intersection EI bar. That means given EI, that means the probability that path 1 and path 2 and path 3 up to dot 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 up to and path I minus 1 are not working while path I is working. So that is denoted by the event. Okay, to find that, we use another term, another notation, which is E bar Ji. What is E bar Ji? The event denoting that Pj is faulty given Pi is operational. Now this probability, that probability E1 bar intersection E2 bar intersection dot 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 up to EI minus 1 bar given EI can be written as this: probability of E1 given I bar intersection E2 given I bar intersection even EI minus 1 given I bar. So what does this mean? Why can we write this? This left hand side can be written as this right hand side, because what we are saying that the probability, the left hand side is saying that what is the probability that P1 is not working and P2 is not working and P3 is not working. It's just ands. All of them are ands while Pi is working. So how can we it is same as saying that P1 is not working given Pi is working. Intersection of P2 is not working given P2 P2 is PI is working. So in the individual case that P1 is working given PI is not working, we could have the fact that in that case E2 is working, E1 is not working given P1 is not working given PI is working. That does not include anything about P2. But when we say P1 is not working given PI is working, intersection of P2 is not working given PI is working, the intersection of these two includes both of them together. Why? Because these are and all of them are ands together. So this on the left E1 bar intersection dot up to EI minus 1 bar given EI can be written as the probability of E1 given EI bar intersection E2 given EI bar dot up to EI minus 1 given EI bar. Okay, now if we are okay with this notation on the right, we have an advantage. Why did we write it in this way? Because we want to get only two paths at a time. We want to be able to reason on only two paths at a time. So in the right, when we are writing E1 given EI bar, E2 given EI bar, E3 given EI bar, this becomes an intersection over events concerning only two paths. So it is a big intersection over multiple events, but each such event concerns only two paths. Now, when we are able to do that, so we can identify, we can have this, we identify the links that must fail for Ej given I, this is I, Ej given I to occur. So we can determine the conditional set of links. It is set of links actually. What are these conditional set of links? Pji. Pji gives me a conditional set of links. So Pji is Pj minus Pi, the set of links xk such that xk is a link belonging to Pj but not belonging to Pi. So why are we what are we trying to determine? Say let us, I want to find out E1 I bar. So for that, I will find out P1 minus Pi, which means what I am trying to find out? Those set of links is xk such that xk belongs to P1, because I want to find out the case in which P1 is failing, P1 is faulty. So those must the links xk which will belong to P1 but will not belong to Pi, and xk not belonging to Pi, right? For P1i. So this is why I use this. Any questions up to this? Then I will move to the example. Hello.
Yeah, you can.
It's fine.
Yes. Okay. So then to do that, we consider a slightly more complicated example consisting of 6 nodes, which could again either be computational nodes, end systems, or switches which connect multiple other switches or end systems. So switches are what? It's connectors to other end systems or switches, and end systems are data receiving or transmitting devices. Okay. So this has 9 links, with 6 links being unidirectional like this and 3 links bidirectional like this. Now, here we want to find out in this example the path reliability between N1 and N6. So like before, whatever be the network given to us, we first must identify what are the distinct paths from N1 to N6. And this here we have, for example, in this case, we have 13 paths. So these 13 paths have been numbered for our convenience, as we will see later, from the shorter paths to the longer paths. The shortest paths are of size 3 here, length 3 here, and the longest paths are of size 5. So what are the 3 length paths that we have? P1, X13, X35, X56, P2, X12, X12, X25, X12, X25, X56, and P3, X13, X24, X46. Similarly, we have 4 length paths and 5 length paths. One 4 length path, for example, P4 is X13, X23, X13, X13, X35, X45, X46. So similarly, we have other paths ordered from shortest to longest. Now, what do we do with these paths? So the first exercise done, we have to find the paths. Then we told that the individual probabilities. So we have to find out that term. So now we will determine, we will come to which equation to find the reliability. We will use just a minute. We will use this one, this last one. I am in slide number 4, last equation. So what is the reliability from source to destination? Probability of E1 plus probability of E2 given this plus probability of E1. And we said, how do we write that? We will write it in this form. So for example, so we will write it as reliability equals to prob of E1 plus prob of E2 into prob of E2 given 1 bar. Something like this, right? Plus dot dot dot. So where this will mean this probability of E2 given 1 bar would mean, sorry, 1 2. I made a mistake, sorry. It will be P1 2. So probability that 2 is working given I is not working. Probability EJI bar we wrote. If we go to the last slide, we wrote probability of EJI bar denoting PJ is faulty given PI is operational. So this is what it is. Plus, for example, plus what will be the third term? Can somebody of you tell me the third term? Probability of E3 into what? Can you tell me? Right? Probability of E3 into probability of E1 given 3 bar and P2 given 3 bar plus 1. Why? Because probability of that 1 is not working given 3 is not working, intersection with P2 is not working given 3 is working, right? Any questions up to this? Hello? Yes. Are you with me?
Sir,
Yes. So what is the first term probability of E1? Am I making any mistake? Am I making any mistake somewhere? Why are you quiet? Is it okay, not okay? Any problem?
It's okay, sir. It's clear.
Right. Right. So what will be the first term? The first term is P13, P35, 356. So X13, X35, 356. So the probability that the path 1 is working without consideration of anything else is P13 into P35 into 356. Now, what is the second term? The second term is probability that P2 will be working and P3 will be not working. So it is the and what how do you find E of 1 given 2 bar? That you can find out by finding out the links that belong to 1 but does not belong to 2. So what is the second path? The second path we said is, what was the second path for us? That just let me go back to path 2. So path 2 was this: x12, x12, x25, x12, x25, x12, x12, x25, x56. And first path is x13, 3556. So x56 is common in path 1 and path 2. So if this is the case, right? So this is path 1 and path 2 is this: x12, x25, x35. This is path 2. So if this is the case, then for determining E1 given to bar, we must find out the links which belong to E1 but does not belong to P2, which belongs to P1 but does not belong to P2. And what are they? 1, 3 and 3, 5. Okay. So this P1, the conditional set, as we said, conditional set of links. What are the conditional set of links that belongs to P1 but does not belong to P2? X13 and X35. So therefore, any one of these paths will have to fail if it has to happen that P1 will fail while P2 is working. So either X13 will fail or X35 will fail. Okay. So the probability that that any one of them, so P13 into P35, what does it mean? That both are working. So both are working, and 1 minus P13 into P35 is saying that at least one of both are not working together. The probability that both are not working, both one X13 and X35 are not working. So the second term therefore will become the probability that P2 is working, which is P1 into P25 into P56, multiplied by this event, this probability of E1 given to bar, and that is 1 minus P13 into P35. Is this okay with you?
Yes, sir.
Next, let us find the fourth term and then we will discuss about the third term and then move into something else. So the fourth term therefore will consist of what? Probability that P4 is working plus probability, multiplied by probability that P1 is not working given P4 is working, intersection or multiplication with probability that P2 is not working given P4 is working, intersection or multiplied with probability that P3 is not working given P4 is working, right? So therefore, what we said that P1 was this path, P1 was this path, P2 was this path, P3 was this path, and what was P4? Let us quickly check what was P4. P4 was X13, X35, X45, X46. So this is P4. So this is P4. This is P4. Now, therefore, the conditional sets, what will it be? X14. If we see that what is the link that belongs to path 1 but does not belong to path 4? Only X56. So this will be X56. What are the links which belongs to 2 but does not belong to 4? What are they? It will be what? X13, X35 and X45. X13, what was, just a minute, what was P2? P2 is X13, X35 and we said X56. Okay, X56. Why is X56? What is P2? Is there a mistake? Oh no, what P2 is, sorry, I have made a mistake. So P24 is links that belong to path 2 but does not belong to path 4. So it has to be part of path 2 but not part of path 4. So what are they? X12 is a link which is of path 2 and does not belong to path 4. X25 which belongs to path 2 but does not belong to path, and X56 is a link. So there are no links in common. So all the 3 links of path 2 will come here. For the third path, conditional set for P3 given 4 is what? What are they? P3 is this link. So there, if this is so, then what are the links? So X12 is a link which belongs to path 3 and does not belong to path 4, and X24 is a link which belongs to path 3 and does not belong to path 4. Okay. Now, again, there is another complication that comes up here. It is that P24, which is X56, is contained, sorry, P24, which is this, X12, X25 and X56 already contains X14, sorry, P14. So if the event P24 happens, means that P14 will also happen. So which means that if path 2 has to fail when path 4 is working, then naturally path 1 will fail as well. So P24 will fail when P14 fails. So P24 may be discarded. What did I say? I am sorry. I'm saying that P14 will, if P14 fails, P24 will always fail. Sorry, if P14 fails, P24 will always fail. P24 failing does not mean that P14 will fail, but if P14 fails, P24 will always fail. So therefore, if we consider P14, we do not have to consider P24. So the fourth term will become P13 into P35 into P45 into P46, which is P4 into 1 minus P56, which is P14, P1 given 4, and 1 minus P1 into P3, which is P3 given 4. So this multiplication gives us the fourth term. Is the fourth term okay?
Yes, sir.
Certainly.
Yes. Yeah, yes. Ask.
So like we are not taking the P24 time because so if P14 will fail, P24 will also fail. But there can be other case where like P24 independently can fail, right? If X25.
But we are including P14 and and P1 is being considered before P2. If we consider the sequence in which we are considering P1. If P1 is not working, then P2. If P1 and P2 are not both working, then P3. Likewise. So
Okay, sir.
P1, yes, right?
Yes, sir. Got it, sir.
Okay. I did not consider the third path, but I'll just tell what is the third part is even bit more complicated. Why is that so? So in P3, the conditional set, consider the conditional set P, just a minute. Say P13. P13. What is P13? Links that belong to path path 1 but does not belong to path 3. What are they? They are, can you tell me what are they? Paths that belong to links that belong to path 1 but does not belong to path 3. All
So
three. All
X1.
three. X13, X35, X56.
Yeah, all three, right.
Now, what is P23? P23 is X25 and
X5.
X5. So these two are not disjoint. So this P13 and P23 are not disjoint. Which means that P1 and P2, this will be faulty. P1 and P2 both will be faulty if one of these happen. That if X56 is faulty, so both these events will happen together. X13, P13 and P23 will fail together, or X56 is working and X13 has X13 has X13 is faulty, X35 is working, X25 is faulty. The other case is X56 is working, X13 is working, but X35 is faulty and X25 is faulty. These cases, if we write it, if we write and expand it, you will get P3. These are all this is the most complicated case that can happen, and likewise it is just manually or writing a program to calculate all the events together. How many events we will have? 13 events, because we have 13 paths. Did you understand what I said? Because X5 means we have to find out the case in which this and this can happen together. Now for the case before, we said that X14, if X14 happens, X24 will always happen. It was easier. Now in this case, it is not that easy. Both of them contain, means here, although they are not common, X14 contains only one link or case. So therefore if X14 happens, X24 will always happen. Here it is not so. So we have to find, therefore we have to go into the details and find out what is the probability that X13 and X23 will happen together. So we found out that X5, if X56 fails, both of them will fail together, like the case we had for P4, right, for the fourth term. Now if this is not so, can this P13 and P23 fail together? Yes. So the case is that P56 will be working, and let us say X35 will be working, but X13 and X25 are both faulty. In that case, P13 and P23 will fail together. There is another case. X56 is working. Say X13 is working, but X35 and X25 have failed together. So if we write these, so if we write this, so what will happen? So the first case is that when q of 5 6, it is the case that both of them will not work if Q56 happens. Or the other case is P56 into Q13 not working, into, and Q25 is not working, right? And plus P56 into P13 into Q35 into Q25. Okay, here I told you the concept. You go into the book, you must have procured the book. This example is there, so I won't go into, means this is the concept, this is what is it. If you have problems in understanding, you go into the book, read, and let me know. I am always there. And but this is what it is. Any questions, by the way? If you have, I can try to answer. Otherwise, I will move to time sensitive networks. Quickly, we'll start with it together today and then move on tomorrow. Is this, so are you with me?
Yes, sir.
Are there any questions here? I think you read once and let me know. Okay. Read
Yes, sir.
the book once. Okay. So why time sensitive network? So time sensitive network is a time triggered communication network. Unlike other networks like CAN, which is an event triggered communication network, there is another very common time triggered network. For example, FlexRay. There is the time triggered Ethernet. But time sensitive network is the most recent, and it is being envisioned as the one network that will be used in all futuristic time sensitive control systems. Control systems are time sensitive, and in all cyber physical systems, time sensitive distributor system, this is the network that are going to be used. So in automotive systems, avionic systems, industrial networks, in I 4.0. So people are projecting, even if you go into the YouTube and see and search for this, you will see that time sensitive network is being projected as the next big thing that should be in embedded communication networks, and therefore we need to study it. So why is it big? Firstly, because it is a network that can give you accurate, that can be accurate up to sub microsecond level. That means if it says that this will happen in time in a distributed system, two events happen at this time, so the inaccuracy between the times of two events working is less than 1 microsecond. So we'll go into the details of that. And there is a second big reason. It is an extension over Ethernet. So people are biased towards Ethernet, number one. It is a very cost-effective, time-tested networking technology, and it is vastly used in many legacy systems. So currently, most office works, if most offices, etc., use Ethernet. Ethernet is everywhere. Now, time-sensitive network can use the whole old legacy network of the Ethernet, and it just needs to include a few time-sensitive switches inside to make it a time-sensitive network. That is the beauty. And obviously, you could use new links. You could use new time-sensitive network. You can also deploy. So people are projecting that CAN, FlexRay, and all types of networks that are there is set to be replaced by time-sensitive network, and hence we are studying it. So why time-sensitive network? Because latency guarantees are established as a basic requirement for real-time data transmission in a number of application scenarios. For example, in our motors, synchronized axles and drives in motors, when multiple motors are being synchronized. Power generation systems, for example, in smart grids, suppose you have a sudden breakdown of some generation stations, and there is a glitch, and therefore there are phase and frequency imbalances, and to keep power quality you need to you need to redistribute the power within about 500 milliseconds or so, and correct the phase and frequency imbalances in the whole electrical network. To do that, you have to be fast and accurate with respect to time, because the algorithms, the control algorithms there will need accuracy on time. So the messages has to reach before certain deadlines to certain transformers, and then has to be distributed to substations, etc. So this thing has to happen in a very timely and accurate manner, and as well as fast. So power generation networks also need time sensitive networking schemes. Transmission and distribution networks of power, as well as the transportation industry, as we told, automotive systems, like the communication between, let us say, the the steering control system, the power steering control system, and the anti-lock braking system, or the fuel injection system and the anti-lock braking system, the throttle, etc. So the communication between these things have to happen in a timely and accurate manner. So in these fields, cycle times for the transmission of time sensitive process data are often significantly below 1 millisecond. So these have to be very quick. Why? Because all these control systems, they are sensing data at regular intervals, let us say at sub-millisecond time intervals. They are continuously sensing data, not sub-interval, sub-millisecond, maybe every 50 milliseconds or so. For example, let us say your brake is sensing for physical pressing of brakes, let us say every few milliseconds, and then acting on it. And so therefore you need mechanisms of taking the information from the brake at that resolution of time, and then send it to the controller, which will act on the sensed information. And therefore you have to be accurate on time. And another beauty of time sensitive network is that it allows for the inclusion of softer real-time traffic along with along with this hard real-time traffic in the same network. So you do not need additional networks for it. For example, the control systems like anti-lock braking system and power steering system, and let us say these systems can work in parallel with the infotainment system, which is softer real time. Okay. So now, what are the drawbacks of the current networks? Now let us say CAN. Time guarantees are typically approximated by over provisioning the available bandwidth. Because standard network, even like the CAN, Ethernet is one of them, and CAN, standard network has no concept of time. How does CAN work? it has, with each message, it adds a priority, like it's an arbitration priority. And if you have messages of higher priority in the network, in the links, you do not send your data. So it does not have any explicit time in it and cannot provide synchronization. Suppose two events are working, two things are happening independently, but in a distributed manner, but at some point in time you want to synchronize by some mechanism, by passing messages. So suppose you tell two systems to synchronize, and therefore you want to ensure that if you said that this message should go to these two end systems which are distributed and asynchronous by themselves at certain time, you should be, both of them should have should be seeing the same value of time and should be able to synchronize at the same time. A typical easy example often given is that, let us say you are producing Coke bottles and let us say some other cold drink bottle in two separate systems, and after producing, the bottles are going over a conveyor belt and then coming to a position where you have a single, where both the conveyor belts are merging into a single conveyor belt. So rows of bottles are coming from two sides, and you have a part in between where the two conveyor belts are merging in such a way that you must have one Coke, say one Pepsi. Pepsi and Coke will not come together, but I'm saying that suppose both Coke and Pepsi are coming over two conveyor belts, and you have a part of the conveyor belt which is common, and the Pepsi bottles and the Coke bottles in their own conveyor belts are regularly spaced, and both the conveyor belts are working at the same speed, they are moving at the same speed, and when they come at the common part of the conveyor belt, you have to ensure that no two bottles from the two conveyor belts will ever collide. So therefore, both these systems which are sending the Coke bottles in through one conveyor belt and the Pepsi bottles through another conveyor belt should be perfectly synchronized in time, so that these are two distributed end systems, two control systems, one that is producing the Coke bottle, the other one which is producing the Pepsi bottle. Now they are coming together, and these two have to synchronize so that when they come to the common part of the conveyor belt, none of the bottles collide with each other. How do you ensure that? You have to have a messaging mechanism between these control systems which are perfectly synchronized in time. So standard network has no concept of time and cannot provide synchronization and precision timing. Reliability here is more important than delivering on time, so that there are no constraints on delay or synchronization precision. What does this point try to say? That when you do not have precision on time, I am not saying here that precision on time does not mean that you will not you will neglect reliability, where reliability would mean that the message has actually reached the destination. So it does not mean that. You can provide reliability by providing, let us say, additional paths to the endpoint from the source to the destination. However, when you do not have consideration on time, it often so happens that you provide reliability by retransmitting the message. So when you retransmit a message, so if it does not reach the destination, you wait for an acknowledgement for some time and then you retransmit. Now, when you retransmit, what are you doing? You are suddenly increasing the end-to-end transmission time. So therefore, although the average transmission time from the source to destination will be X, the worst case transmission time could be K into X. For example, in the case where you have K minus 1 retransmissions. So the jitter will be very high. And in precise control systems, the jitter, that means the worst case delay between the source and destination, cannot be higher than a certain bound. So therefore, the underlying networking system cannot assume retransmissions as such. They have to be precise on time. Reliability has to be taken care by some other mechanism, by redundancy. even if the average hop delay is very low. So that's what we are saying. In that case, what happens is that even if the average hop delay is very low, individual delays can be unacceptably high as required for high precision networks, time precise networks. Network congestion is handled by throttling and retransmitting dropped packets at the transport layer. So what do we mean here? So transport layer, so we have the physical layer, the data link layer, network layer, and transport layer, right? So in the transport layer, you see the network from one endpoint to the other endpoint. So the intermediate network is not seen. From source to destination, you see a direct link at the transport layer. You must have studied in the first part of this course or in other courses as well. So if that happens, how do you do that? The source sends to the destination. If the destination does not send an acknowledgement, the source resends. So this happens at the transport layer. Why transport layer? Because it is seeing from one end to the other end, nothing in between. Now, so the network congestion is handled through throttling. What do you mean by throttling? If it sees that my network, that my packets from the source, are not reaching the destination at the correct time, what do? From the source, you reduce the speed at which your data is being sent, at which your packets are being sent. So you're throttling the rate at which data is being delivered. Throttling means reducing the rate at which data is being delivered from the source to destination. Or what do? You retransmit when you do not send an acknowledgement. In both these cases, what are you essentially doing? You are increasing the delay of individual packets, which are unacceptable in real-time networks, where you have hard real-time networks, where if you do not send the message in time, there could be some bad, unacceptable event that will happen if you do not send it in time. So in such networks, event-triggered systems means where you do not have exact idea of time, you cannot work with such systems. Hence, you need time-sensitive networks. Okay, data can be lost when the buffers are too small or the bandwidth is insufficient, but excessive buffering may add to delay. Again, buffering can add to delay. So, okay, let us stop here, and maybe tomorrow we will start afresh and nicely look at time-sensitive networks, and we'll look at many things into this. Our time is up today. Tomorrow, 5 o'clock. Yes, any questions? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes, fine then. So, yeah, tomorrow. Yes, you are asking something? Somebody asking something? Hello? Somebody asking something? Yes. Hello? Are you there?
Yes, sir.
Anything asking? Somebody anything asking? No?